Hi, I'm Charles Band, and I thought a little explanation about the history of the last Foxtrot in Burbank is in order. I think a lot of you probably don't know I made this movie as I tried to erase it over the years. But a lot of the story is actually in my book, Confessions of a Puppet Master. So I figured, well, in case you're watching Last Foxtrot in Burbank, you should hear the story a bit before you roll film. So it was the early 70s. I was 22. We had come back to the United States from Europe. We grew up in Italy. And my dad fell on hard times. He made a lot of movies in the 60s up to 70, 71. And then things didn't work out for him, so he came back with no money. But, you know, I grew up on a movie set, so I kind of knew that part of it. And I was dying to make my first horror movie. That's all I wanted to do, was make a horror movie. And I became very friendly with a fellow named Frank Ray Perilli. Frankie Ray at the time was pretty well-known exploitation script writer. He had movies out like The Doberman Gang, a bunch of Doberman pinchers that robbed a bank. And he was also Lenny Bruce's partner for many years. His whole background was burlesque, and he was a stand-up comedian. And I just loved the guy. He was my kind of bizarre guide into Hollywood, having not grown up here. I grew up in Rome. So here I am, young kid, sort of being brought around town by Frankie at that time. He was probably 50. And he was definitely an amazing guy and full of funny stories. And he knew how badly I wanted to make my first horror movie, but I had zero money. Anyway, I somehow, because I've been pretty entrepreneurial, I invented a gift item business, and that's in the book. I don't want to bore you with it now. But I got very lucky, and this business I sort of invented took off, and suddenly I made a ton of money, I mean, relative to the times. And I had just enough money to make my first film. And I had a number of different horror ideas in mind, different stories. But Frankie, who was very convincing, and I love the guy, he goes, you know, Charlie, there's a movie coming out in about a month. It's called The Last Tango in Paris with Marlon Brando. It's going to be a huge hit. Instead of making this horror movie thing, why don't you put that to the side? Let's make a send-up, you know, a comedy, you know, of sort of making fun of Last Tango in Paris. I got this fellow, he's an actor, his name Michael Pataki, he does a great Brando impression. Let's make The Last Foxtrot in Burbank. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it sounds like a terrible idea. But he convinced me somehow to make this movie, you know, which was not the plan and not what I wanted to do. But, you know, he was, again, so charming, and his ideas were so funny, you know, at least as we talked about him over too much wine. I thought, you know, maybe we can make this comedy, this satire called The Last Foxtrot in Burbank. And in fact, Michael Pataki did a fantastic Brando. So I would say that if you're going to watch Last Foxtrot in Burbank, you know, you may want to see Last Tango in Paris, because pretty much scene for scene we're making fun of a movie. And if you don't have the reference, if you've not seen Last Tango, this movie will be even more absurdly ridiculous. So I decided to make it, and we got busy doing all the things I was yearning to do, but for the wrong movie. So what happened was we shot the movie. You know, I kind of had this marketing thing going on. Another fellow at the time convinced me the only way to make money is to take the movie out and four-wall it, means rent the movie theater, or theaters plural, and screen it and collect the money, and you can make a lot of money that way, and do a premiere in Hollywood. So, you know, here I was, I already made the movie, we were finishing it, and I was convinced to basically spend more money on a fancy Hollywood premiere and invite people and Klieg lights and make a big deal out of The Last Foxtrot in Burbank. So I rented two theaters. They were some of the best theaters in town at the time, Pacific Theaters, one in Hollywood and one in Westwood. We did a premiere that Friday night. I think it was like 6 o'clock or something like that. And hundreds of people showed up because it was free, and we had booze and we had Klieg lights. Dustin Hoffman showed up and some other celebrities at the time. And I sat and watched this movie, you know, with an audience, and I just knew this thing was just not going to work. I didn't know if it was funny because I knew Frankie and he made me laugh, or if in fact for someone who had never seen Last Foxtrot, or Last Tango rather, it would be like really bad. But I was thinking, why didn't I make a horror movie? But, you know, hope springs eternal. And I figured, well, the math is great, because even if 50 or 60 people show up for every screening for the week, I could recover the rental of the movie theater and make a few bucks. And plus the place was full. Of course, it was a free screening, a premiere. So it was all about the next showing, which I think was the 8 o'clock, something like the 8 o'clock. And we sat there after everybody left, and the 8 o'clock came and went, and there were 5 people in the audience. And this theater held 900 people, 5. And I think 3 of them walked out. So I knew it was a complete and utter disaster. And in fact, it was. I thought, well, I have no more money. This is going to ruin my career. I better go back to Italy and become a carpenter or something. So, I mean, I had those thoughts. It was an absolute nightmare. There's a few funny anecdotes which are in the book, which you guys should read. It's my crazy adventure through 40-odd years of filmmaking. And then I sort of got my breath again. Luckily, this gift item business did well enough that we kept bringing in some more money. I thought, okay, all I can do is erase this movie, and make my first horror movie. So I went about destroying the prints, throwing them away. We only made a handful of prints. Getting rid of any PR, publicity, printed material. And I went out to make my first horror movie, which was Mansion of the Doomed. And as some of you know, I number all my movies starting back in the 70s, so Mansion of the Doomed is obviously #1. And I pretty much erased Foxtrot. So for years in my biography and my filmography, people always talk about Mansion as the first movie, because I never mentioned Last fucking Foxtrot in Burbank, because it was such a disaster and an embarrassment, because it's a ridiculous movie. So little by little, the years go by, and once in a while someone brings it up, and then for the last 20 years, no one talks about Foxtrot. It was lost and forgotten. And it was only about Mansion of the Doomed, my first movie with Richard Basehart and Gloria Graham, and Stan Winston was my effects guy, and Andrew Davis was my DP. It was a great first movie, a great experience. And then literally the summer of 2020, when I'm finally with the wonderful writer Adam Felber writing my book, they call it a memoir, but to me it's more like my life so far, because we're rocking hard, and 2022 I think we'll make 18 features. But nonetheless, I have to sit down and remember all these stories. And Adam said, you should talk about Foxtrot. There's some really funny stories about Foxtrot. You should not let that go. So what if it hasn't been in your biography for all these years? Tell it. So I told the story, kind of an abbreviated version of what I'm telling you guys now. And shortly thereafter, as we're preparing this book, Larry Karaszewski, who's a good friend and a fantastic writer, he says, Charlie, I found, kind of through the underground, a trailer of Last Foxtrot in Burbank. Do you mind if I clean it up and I'll do something for Trailers from Hell? And I go, Jesus fucking Foxtrot. But he sent me the trailer, and I thought, oh, that was pretty funny. I like the trailer because the trailer has nothing to do with the movie. It was a little setup, and you'll see it on this DVD or Blu-ray. It was the style of the time, is when you have something so hard to look at and so full of forbidden scenes. What you do is you have people coming out of a movie theater talking about the movie and how it's crazy and it's beyond filth. And so the trailer was family and friends, talking about Foxtrot in an amazing way. Not one clip of the movie, like zero. So the trailer, he cleaned it up. Trailer came out on Trailers from Hell, and we posted it. I'm sure some of you've seen it on our Full Moon Features site. I thought, okay, well, that's the end of that. At least the trailer's kind of fun. And then Larry got a text or a tweet, I'm not sure what, but somehow someone from the UCLA Film Archive said, hey, Larry, I think we have the negative, the original negative of The Last Foxtrot in Burbank. And I go, what? He says, yes, and here's the guy you should get in touch with. So I called this wonderful guy over at UCLA Film Archives. He said, Charlie, he says, obviously we're not sure how good the negative is, but someone 47 years ago came in with this negative, and we've had it ever since. No one's asked about it. No one knows we have it, but I remember that title. It's hard to forget that title, and I'm happy to lend it out to you. Larry's a friend, and you should transfer it, see what you got. So I'm thinking, oh my God, back from the past. So we caught the negative, we sent it over to the film chain, we did the transfer, and lo and behold, it's a beautiful 35mm print of this ridiculous movie I made called The Last Foxtrot in Burbank. So that's what you're about to see. It's just weird how time and space kind of conspired between the book, Larry finding the trailer, and now the movie was found, because I threw everything out, but the negative somehow survived. And that's kind of the story. So forgive me, this movie is, I'm sure it's totally inappropriate by today's standards. It's not what I wanted to do. I made my first and last guest appearance in the movie as a priest. I'm sorry I did that. But you know, there are moments of humor, so appreciate the fact I was 22, it was the early 70s, and we made a bizarro movie called The Last Foxtrot in Burbank. So thank you, and I hope you kind of enjoy the movie and put it in perspective. And oh yeah, finally, so since I've numbered all my movies for 40 odd years, starting with number 1, the only number I could give Last Foxtrot is 0. Ciao.